Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the PSAND Lunch and Learn. It is top of the noon, and so let's go ahead and get started. I'm Andrea Hochhalter. I'm with the PSAND organization. I work as a project director for the organization. Today, we have Emma Quinn, who is actually going to be walking us through the presentation. It's something she's put together. It's something she's very, very skilled at in terms of policy, but more than skilled at, she's super passionate about it. So I'm grateful for Emma to bring her skills and passion to us today to inform and educate us on policy and why it matters, and it matters to us as peer support. So we'll go ahead and get an education there today. Let's see, Emma, you have the slide deck, so I will let you go ahead and pull that up and start to share it.
You have to give me permission again to
I
share.
didn't do that yet. Done. Now you have it.
Okay. Let's see. Share. Okay, and we're gonna.
While Emma's doing that, I'll just make mention is she'll go through the majority of the content. You're welcome to use the chat for some questions, or if you have a burning question, to raise your hand and answer it. We do reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes of the call specifically to review any questions that come up in the chat, or you can raise them at that time as well too. Also important to note is that at the end of today's session, you'll receive information on how to get your CEU. So you are eligible for one CEU through completion of today's session. That information will be available at the end. And the session is being recorded. All the PSAND's Lunch and Learns, the recordings are available on our website under training and events. So even past sessions you can go back to, and you can still get CEUs for those past Lunch and Learns that are on our website.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
Emma, just so you know, we're in the view where we have the one slide and then the next slide showing if that's what you want us to see or not.
No, that's not what I wanted you to see. No, that's sorry. We should have tried this before we.
Or we can do this view too.
Why is it review, record, insert, why is it use slideshow? That's all I want. What am I doing wrong, you guys?
From what say when you do from beginning, what's it do? That's what it does.
That's what it does, yeah. Catherine has her
Is
hand
there
up.
is there a different when I do that, there's always another window that has it on. Catherine,
Right at the top of the screen there, it says display settings.
you.
Oh, display settings. There we go. Swap. There we go. Does that?
Thank you,
Okay.
Catherine. Woo!
Thank you. I see it over on my other screen just fine.
Excellent.
Oh, good times, good times. Okay, so yeah, welcome to Policy Matters. I was gonna say Bonnie's gonna introduce us.
Oh, Bonnie was here. So, okay. Well, just briefly, our mission for PSAND is we're a statewide network dedicated to advancing peer support in the state of North Dakota. We're peer operated, we're peer directed with a mission to help people on their journey to recovery and wellness. We at PSAND promote leadership, advocacy, education, and support. Next slide.
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm one of the PSAND board members. And about PSAND, a little bit about us. What do? We build connections. PSAND provides peers with the North Dakota-based network of connection and support. We work to advance peer support. PSAND strives to advance the peer support workforce to grow its recognition as a valued profession. We integrate and innovate through collaboration. PSAND plans to assist organizations and systems in integrating and utilizing peers, and we're a voice for peers. We maintain a clear understanding of the needs and interests of peer workers and act as a shared voice. So who is PSAND here for? PSAND is here for everyone who believes in peer support and believes that it makes a difference in people's lives. We're here for peer support specialists, of course, for prospective peer specialists, for peer supervisors, for allies of peer support, and for agencies that utilize peer support services. And we kind of like to know who's in the room today. So as you're here participating in this, in the chat, please type in who you are, where you're from, what agency or organization that you work for, so that we can get familiar with who you are.
Okay. Thanks, Tamara. So like Andrea said, my name is Emma Quinn, and I have been a peer support for a little over about 6 years now. And I actually got involved in legislative work because of peer support. So just a little bit of background about me and why I'm qualified to actually talk on this. So I've been advocating at a state level during our legislative session and interim sessions for peer support and behavioral health services for this will be my 3rd session because we meet every other year. So session objectives. In this presentation, hopefully I will help you understand the legislative process in North Dakota, help you differentiate between advocacy and lobbying, explore the importance of policy and peer support, and learn how to access, track, and engage in the legislative process. So we're going to go over a few basics. I don't know how much people know and how much people don't know. So there are 3 branches of government. We're going to go back to a little bit of civics class. The executive branch is headed by the governor. The legislative branch is comprised of elected representatives and has 2 chambers. So you have the House and then you have the Senate. We have 47 senators that serve 4-year terms, and then we have 94 representatives that serve 4-year terms. And then we have the judicial branch, which is led by the state Supreme Court, and North Dakota has 5 Supreme Court justices. So we are currently in the 69th Legislative Assembly. They meet in Bismarck at the state capitol. Session runs January through April, and they meet every 2 years on the odd year. So it's 2025, so we're meeting this year. Then it will be the interim between now and 2027. And in the interim is where they'll do studies. They still do hearings and things like that. It's just not as busy and robust. And laws aren't being passed. It's where they more look at things they call them studies. And so they're looking at how things operate and how they're formulating plans to address issues during the interim. And then our legislative session meets for 80 days. So they usually wrap up in April. So what is the purpose of government? In the short, it comes down to writing and passing laws and then appropriate monies to state government agencies. So these are things going to be like the Department of Corrections, Department of Health and Human Services. Those are going to be the ones that typically affect us. So they allocate money for that. So why is government important to peer support? So the Behavioral Health Division oversees the peer support trainings and certifications. So everybody that's been trained for peer support, you have interacted with our Behavioral Health Division. The Behavioral Health Division is actually a division within the Health and Human Services Department. And the Health and Human Services is actually the largest state budget in North Dakota. So it's really important that that's supported. So that way we can make sure that things like behavioral health services and peer support are funded as well. And then our wonderful peer support administrator, Kenzie, she is actually an employee of the behavioral health division. And then programs that employ peers, such as Free Through Recovery or Community Connect, are behavioral health division programs, and they are 100% state funded. So when we talked about allocating money and appropriating money to the Health and Human Services budget, that is to go to things like Free Through Recovery and Community Connect, which employs peers. So what has already been accomplished and what do we still need to do? So Free Through Recovery and Community Connect programs were created and funded. Peer support certification was also created. That was something I actually personally testified on. And last legislative session, the Human Service Centers received funding to support transition peer supports from temporary positions to full-time employees. So that was really exciting. So that way they got benefits, and when funding ran out, they still had a job. So what needs continuing funding and support? So every 2 years, when budgets go up, it needs support. So peer support trainings are state funded. So if we want to continue to keep training peers, that will need support. And then large payers of peer support, such as Free Through Recovery and Community Connect, are state funded. So those also will need support on a continuous basis. So why participate in the legislative process? A lot of people think, well, I voted and I elected my officials, I'm good. But the truth is, your voice really does matter, you guys. I cannot stress that enough. North Dakota has one of the most open legislators in the nation. I didn't realize this because I've only ever advocated in North Dakota, but not every state has a state where you can just show up at the Capitol and testify. And so we're really lucky to live in a state that opens that door for us and makes it easy for our voices to be heard. Because truthfully, legislators want to hear from us. They want to know how their constituents feel about issues, especially about behavioral health issues. And so it's important that we speak up. We know better than anybody about what's going on the ground floor. So it's important that we help educate our legislators about what's going on, what's important, and what are the things that we could have used during our recovery process.
Emma, can I pipe in here for a minute?
Yeah.
So I was just going to mention, if anybody wants to go to, like when they go to the legislative sessions, if they want to sit on the floor, they can actually do it. All they need to do is contact their legislative person in their district, and they'll get invited and they can actually sit on the floor. It's pretty interesting to do that. So just let you know that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit more about getting involved and how to find your legislators in just a little bit too. So it's really fun. If you've never sat out on a floor session, you get to see how they vote. And so it's quite a unique experience. So I want everybody to understand the basics of how does a bill become a law. So we are going to watch a short video. This is one of my favorite Schoolhouse Rock videos of all time. And I'm sure you've all seen it, but it's always a good refresher. Can everybody hear the audio? Oh.
Yes.
Whew, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while
Okay, I'm gonna do this thing.
but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will. But today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm gonna live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill. He signed your bill. Now you're a law. Oh, yes.
Awesome. Oh, okay. So, sorry, that is just like my favorite because it really breaks down how the bill process works. So, who can introduce bills? Only members of the legislator or state agencies, boards, or commissions can introduce a bill. So, I can't personally go introduce a bill into our legislative session. I would have to find a legislator to sponsor it. Once a bill is introduced, it will be assigned to a committee. The committees that I find our bills are most likely in are the human services. That's where a lot of the peer support bills will live. And then one committee that you might take interest in is the Judiciary Committee. That has a lot to do with judiciary reform. And so sometimes that applies to us and the clients we serve. At the committee, the group of legislators evaluate a bill and make recommendations to the full chamber. So it'll get a do pass, do not pass, or if it needs to be rewritten. And committees is truthfully where the lawmaking happens. And that's where you'll testify. So just a quick review of the lawmaking process. So a bill is submitted and assigned to a committee. You have public hearings and committee work or action. Then it goes to the floor for debate and it is voted on. And if it passed, say it starts in the House, then it's going to go to the Senate. And it's going to repeat all of the same steps of being assigned a committee, going to having a hearing and having a committee hearing, going to the floor and debating. And then it passes both this House and the Senate. Then the governor will sign it and it becomes a law. So what is the difference between advocacy and lobbying? Well, advocacy is a general term that can include activities like community organization, public policy, litigation, and voter engagement. Advocacy can be done at all levels of the government and can address the root cause of social and economic problems. So I like to think of advocacy is the everyday work that we do, whether it be from having conversations to with like community members to legislators to our friends and family, things like that. To me, that's advocacy. Where lobbying is a specific type of advocacy that influences legislators on a specific piece of legislation. The IRS defines lobbying as communication intended to influence specific legislation. Lobbying can include the direct lobbying, which is communications with a legislator or their employee, or grassroots lobbying. So this is when you will hear of like the Alzheimer's Association. They have a lobbyist that will follow specific bills that are related to Alzheimer's, and they will meet with representatives and senators to talk about specific pieces of legislation. So how to be informed and educated about bills. First off, read the bill. It's not the most fun way to learn about what the bill is, but it is important that you know what's all in the bill. So that way you know exactly what you're advocating for. You can watch and read the news, listen to the radio. A lot of talk radio talks about legislation, attending candidate forums, or you can listen online or attend committee hearings. So there is a way on the legislative website that you can actually watch committee hearings without having to go to Bismarck. I've struggled a little bit with that, but I think I've got it figured out now. So I think they're kind of getting it. COVID actually helped ramp that up. So finding and tracking bills. This is a link. Okay, now I gotta share. Oops. Okay. So this is going to be our bills and resolution index. And this is where all of the bills that have been filed, oh my goodness, sorry, literally since 11 o'clock, 9 more bills have been filed. So you can see right here, there's 700 total bills that have been filed already. And I plan they say there should be close to about 2,000 bills by the end of session. So you can search through a variety of ways to find which ones you want. You can look if you want to see all the House bills. You can also file by what state agency. Like I said, behavioral health is under Department of Health and Human Services. So if you see, there's 19 bills that have been introduced. So just to give you a little preview. And then you can also track bills. Did my screen automatically go to a legislative bill tracking system? Okay, I'm getting ahead, yes, or not yes. So on this, North Dakota actually has a really cool thing that if there's a specific bill you want to track, you can go in. And I'm already logged in. You'd have to make your own account, but I have, you see 2025 behavioral health. And so these are some of the bills I'm following. We'll click on the House Bill 1012, which is going to be the state budget for Health and Human Services. So behavioral health is under that. And what you'll see is it'll take you to the screen. So you'll get a little bit of who it was introduced by. So this was introduced by House Appropriations, the title of the bill, and then this is all of the versions. Sometimes there'll be multiple versions of the bill. You'll always want to click on the most recent. This only has one version. These are the actions that have been taken. So you can see all the committee hearings that have been scheduled and are currently scheduled. So because the Health and Human Services budget is such a large bill, that's why you see so many committee hearings for this bill. You will see quite a few committee hearings, but not necessarily as many as this specific bill. Any video and testimony that may have happened, so you can go back and watch. So actually, there's quite a bit on this specific bill. You can see all of the hearings that have been scheduled and are currently scheduled. And then lastly, you can see testimony and who has testified in favor, in opposition, or has been neutral. So, okay. So now we should be back to my PowerPoint. Is that correct? Okay. Now let's see. Oh, there we go. So one thing I kind of want to go over is how to find your legislators and kind of go over the legislative website. So when you, oh, there you go. So when you go to ndlegis.gov, which is our legislative branch's website, this is going to be the home page. So here is where you can log into that legislative bill tracking system, and it will track for you the latest actions that have happened on a bill. If you ever want to watch legislative video, you would click there and see, you can see all of the rooms available. Looks like, oh, so there are a couple. So the House and Senate are actually, the floor session is in session. So you could watch that if you wanted. But I think the most important tab up is going to be these tabs up here. Session information is going to be your best friend while we're in session. So we are going to find our legislators. So let's see, how am I going to do this? Legislator information, legislators. So this is a list of all of them that are here. If you go to the 69th, sorry. Okay, sorry. You can find them through here, or you can go under Legislative Assembly, contact my legislators. That's what I was looking for. You'll go right to contact my legislator. And you can put in your house number and the bill number. Or you can go to find my legislator, type in your house number and your zip code. I'm not going to show you my personal address, to be honest. Here, I'll put in my work address. So you'll see a list of addresses popped up. You'll click on the address that is yours and the legislators beside it. And you'll see that for where my work share house is, Kathy Hogan, Lori Beth Hager, and Mary Schneider, I believe, are the legislators for this district. It'll also tell you which district you're in. So this is District 21. And then if you click on their photo, it will give you all the information you want to know about them, including their contact information, such as their email, their address, and their phone number. Just a word of the wise, when contacting your legislators, you'll always catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So try to be polite, try to be respectful, even if you disagree with them. You're just people, especially legislators, want to be treated in a manner that is appropriate and respectful. Because nobody likes getting yelled at. We can certainly disagree, but don't name call, don't do anything like that. So there's a couple ways. I want to go over some bill information on how to find bills. You can go to, like I said, we went over the bill tracking system, bills and resolutions. This will take you to all of the bills that are introduced. And like we said, we kind of already filtered through that. Session information. One thing that's going to be helpful is the calendar. So every Thursday, Friday morning, a calendar comes out for the next following week of what committee hearings are scheduled. So if you go to standing committee hearings, you can either look by which committee you want to go to, or you can scroll down and it will provide all committee hearings. So let's look at the Human Services in the House. So you'll see on Monday, House Bill 1322, which is relating to ambulance server provider reimbursement, their first committee hearings at 10 a.m. And then this will also tell you the room it's being heard in, the description. And then if you want to submit testimony, you would click here and upload your own testimony. And we'll talk a little bit about testimony in just a minute. So what I would always suggest doing is go to ndlegis.gov and kind of mess around on it and see and click around, get familiar with the website. Even I will click. I mean, I think you guys even notice it's like, oh, I didn't mean to click that. I meant to go here instead. So just get familiar with the website if this is something that interests you. But it's a very helpful website. I'm going to stop there really quick and ask if anybody has any questions about website or finding bills and tracking bills. Okay, I'm not hearing any. And if you ever do have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I love helping people navigate this stuff. I'm not the expert on it all, but I can get around it pretty well. And if not, I know the people that know the answers. So, okay. So, how do we, now that we know how to find bills and how do we make sure our voice is heard? This is actually a photo of me testifying in front of the Senate Human Service Committee. So this was a real hearing with our legislators. The most important thing you can do is build relationships with your local legislators. So know who your legislators are, reach out to them, introduce yourself. Let them know what you're passionate about. Emailing your local representatives, that's typically how I get a hold of my representatives. They tend to respond the best and fastest to emails because they never quite know if they're going to be in town or if they're going to be in Bismarck. You can submit written testimony on behalf of a bill, or you can testify in person or virtually. I have never gotten virtual test to testify virtually to work for me. So I personally always go if I'm going to testify on a bill. So I go in person. Um, they set it up during COVID, but to me, this is like when I testify, it's so important to me that I am not going to let technology and any of the snafus that can happen with technology happen. So that's why I personally choose to testify in person. So testifying before a legislative committee. All citizens have a right to testify. North Dakota has one of the most open legislators in the nation. So every bill must have a public hearing, be publicly voted on, and come before the full House and Senate. Your opportunity to testify on a bill comes in committee hearings. And before a hearing, you should find out where your bill will be heard, so what committee, and plan and coordinate your testimony. So what do you include in your testimony, right? You found a bill that you're passionate about, you want to make your voice heard, but what do you include? So the first thing you're always going to want to do out of a sign of respect is address the chairman and committee members. So like the Human Resources House Appropriation, their chair is John Nelson from I believe he's from Devil's Lake. So it'd be, dear Chairman Nelson and committee members, my name is Emma Quinn and I am from District 46. So you're going to state your name and what district you're a constituent of. You're going to clearly state if you're in favor or opposition of a bill and include the bill number. This is really helpful for legislators. State why the bill is important to you. And then you're going to add any personal details of how you benefited or could have benefited from a program or a bill. And then you're going to upload your testimony online, or you can actually have printed physical copies, but make sure you have enough for each committee member and you can hand those out. What you're doing is making sure that committee members can reference your testimony after you testify. So they might go back to their home or hotel room after the committee hearing and want to go over things again to see how they're going to vote. And so having that testimony is really important. And then just expect some questions and comments from committee members to learn more from you. I will say this, I was once in a committee hearing that a legislator said, I expect state employees and lobbyists to know exactly how to testify. I do not expect members of the public to. So they are a lot more forgiving with members of the public than they are if you're a state employee or, like I said, a registered lobbyist. Actually, the first time that I ever testified in front of a committee, I had no idea what I was doing. I just got up there and I actually ended up crying because I was so nervous. And I just said, I just know we need more behavioral health services in North Dakota, and I don't know what I'm doing, and they were so kind. Judy Lee was the chairwoman at the time. And she, thanked me for coming in and agreed that, yes, we need behavioral health services. And thankfully, I don't cry as much unless I'm saying a particularly hard part of my testimony that's personal. But one of the things that I've always been praised for is talking about how things would affect me or how my journey would have been different if some of these policies would have been in place and some of these programs that the Behavioral Health Division put in place, and how my life could have been different and my journey was different and how things affected me personally. A lot of lobbyists will get up there and talk about how how something will affect their business. But a lot of the time, direct consumer and constituent impact is lost. And so speaking for those people is really important in my mind. And that's actually why I testify on a regular basis, is because I want people to really know how policy and funding is affecting the people of North Dakota. So I cannot say it enough, but your voice really does matter and it's important. One thing I will note though, as far as peer support goes, the more we can be on the same page and saying the same thing, the better. Because if we all get up there and say completely different things on one bill, it can actually tend to confuse legislators because they're like, well, one peer support saying this and a different peer support saying this, and one peer support saying, a third thing. And it's like, so what is the truth, right? So the more we can collaborate and kind of be on the same page, the better. That doesn't mean we all have to say the exact same testimony. In fact, that would be quite boring for legislators to listen to. But it's reasons why things like associations are important is because it gives a united voice to an issue. So, other resources. So, I'm not going to click on all of these because there's a lot to go over on those, but the North Dakota Legislative Branch website has a frequently asked question section that's really helpful. They even have videos on how to testify on there. The League of Women's Voters North Dakota, I found their website and their webinars. They actually have quite a few presentations on YouTube as well. I found them incredibly helpful. And they're like, don't let the name fool you. The League of Women's Voters, it started out, my understanding is actually to help women get voting rights, but they cover all types of voting issues. So, and they are really about helping people be empowered to testify. So they have a lot of really good resources there. And then actually the Inforum did an article on how legislation works in North Dakota that I found really helpful as well. And it talks about committees and crossover and all of the fun things that go into legislative work. And so that can kind of concludes my part. We're going to go through. Do we want to go through these first, or do we want to do questions first? Well,
let's go ahead and do questions first.
Okay.
So if you have a question, go ahead and you can raise your hand, or if you can type it into the chat. We can have any discussion that you'd like to have around the content. So Terry, you have your hand raised.
Is it true that lobbyists are paid? I mean,
yes, they can be. Yes.
So an organization will pay them to lobby for what they want to go through.
Correct. Yep. So most lobbyists are going to be paid lobbyists, and either a company specifically, or usually like what happens mostly in North Dakota is like a group of companies will hire a lobbyist. So like, I don't know of a behavioral health lobbyist, but if all the behavioral health providers got together in North Dakota and said, we really want to make sure this issue gets passed this year, they would all kind of pitch in and pay for a lobbyist together. So, and what it does is it allows somebody to dedicate time and effort as their job to follow bills and things like that. So, yeah. And then Calvin also mentioned in the comments, he said they have a presentation in West Fargo this month on how to run for office. Yes. I was going to say, if you guys are running for if interested in running for office, that is not something I am an expert in, but they always need highly passionate and educated people running for office. Government really is made up of a body of our peers. and not peer supports, but a body of peers. So people that live in the state and work in the state. You do have to be able to dedicate time and effort to it. So you have to make sure whatever employer you're working with is on board too. But I know like Sanford encourages their employees to run for office. And so if that's something that interests you, I'm happy to connect you with people, or you can attend the League of Women's Voters presentation, and I'm guaranteed they will have incredible information for you. Beverly said, I wanted to be a part of advocating for recovery for years, but I needed to be taught. Oh, so this is a perfect presentation. Thank you, Beverly. This is exactly why I wanted to do this, is because I want to help empower people to get their voices heard. And I will put my email in the chat. And if you guys ever have questions on anything related to legislative work or what to include in your testimony, or even if you just want somebody to look over your testimony before you go and testify, I am happy to do that. This is a real passion of mine. I truly believe that, government should be ran by the people for the people. And so legislators don't know what they don't know. And so it's up to us to make sure that they are aware of how things are really playing out and the real ways to make our communities safer. Because what you will hear a lot, especially around behavioral health, is one way that I know to kind of get people on board with behavioral health services is to talk about crime and the prisons and jails. Because usually when people have are not in recovery from mental health and substances, they are more likely to end up in our criminal justice system. And so if legislators don't understand why behavioral health is important already, they do understand that communities need to be safer and that we do have crowding and overpopulation in our jails and prisons. And so that's always been but like a good segue to talk about that. There's 4 more messages. Sorry. Yes. And then Calvin talked about some of the NAMI meetings in Fargo. So next month. And so are there any other questions?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Which one's cooler, lobbying or advocacy?
So I personally like advocacy better, truthfully, because I don't have to pick sides. I don't have to play friends. I get to just talk about the issue at hand and why I'm passionate about it and what I think will help. I don't have to have all of the answers. Bonnie has her hand raised.
Yeah. So I've been in the committee meetings quite a bit as I'm a peer support, but I'm also a certified tobacco treatment specialist. So I've been at the I've been in those committee rooms quite a few times. And when we're talking about like the lobbyist, and so when North Dakota became a smoke-free state, we had that law. We had a lot, it was big, it was a big deal. And so not only did we have all our people testifying, but we had the tobacco companies, the lobbyists in those rooms. So it can get pretty intense. I love doing it. I'm like you, Emma. I just love going there and doing this, but it is really interesting. So
yeah,
I would encourage anybody to go.
Absolutely. And even if you can't go, that's really fine. Watch online. Just so you can start to get like a flow, like understanding of really how government works. I am one of the people that I thought I knew how government worked. And then I started advocating and testifying, and I was like, oh, this isn't as just simple and straightforward as I thought. There's a lot of ins and outs. And this is truly just the basics of it.
Right.
But it's enough to make you dangerous and make it so that your voice is, can be heard and that people will take you seriously. So, um, yes, but truthfully, you guys, I cannot say it enough. Your voice matters. And it doesn't just have to be on issues of peer support. Um, on any bill, this applies to any bill that is coming through that you guys want to testify on or make your voices heard on. But really reaching out to your legislators and letting them know who you are and how you feel on things. For example, when the blue laws were originally being repealed back in 2019, I believe, I reached out to my legislators, and one of my legislators was going to vote no on repealing them. And I said, I work Sundays. Why don't you come down and see how the blue laws are really being put in place and blah, blah, blah. And he never came down to see me work, but he did say that me and my husband reaching out to him was one of the reasons he changed his vote from a no to a yes. So they really do listen. That doesn't mean they'll listen every time, but they can. Terry, I know you had a comment or question.
Well, I was just going to make a comment, and I said something in the chat, but I testified for the Workers with Disability Act, and it was really cool because you get to hear how other people are. I mean, all the people that testify stay in a room, everybody, and so you get to learn about other people's experiences too, and then you can build on that. Like I was one of the last people to testify, and it's like what they're saying, and then you can like build on that too, kind of impromptu that way too. And so it was a really good experience for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was in the early 90s, so I don't know if it's changed or not. So
I don't think much has, but maybe. I was gonna say I haven't been testifying since then, but yeah, it's such a cool experience. And don't be surprised if legislators have questions for you or come up to you afterwards. Like our now Lieutenant Governor, I have a real soft spot for her because when I testified in front of her committee 2 years ago, she specifically found me after the committee hearing had adjourned and wanted to talk to me about not just what I had testified on, but behavioral health in general. And that's where I learned about what a passion behavioral health is for her. And so I got to know her a little bit better. And she may not have been somebody I would have normally voted for before. But now, because I know her, I go, yeah, I know what Michelle Strendon is about. And I can, so getting to know your legislators is important because, at the end of the day, yes, they all have little D's or R's at the end of their name, and that's the party they affiliate with. But we have a lot more in common than we don't. And we're all human. And so, like I said, legislators want to know how things are affecting constituents.
Bonnie?
Yeah, so here at First District, what we do with our legislators is like I'm in District 5, so I call my legislators and we invite them to come here and we'll give them a packet and just kind of let them know what we do here, and just get to know them. And when I see them out in public now, they remember me, hopefully, but we let them know what we do, like the tobacco cessation and, why it's important for us to increase tobacco taxes. And so when these bills come up, they can connect with us. If they have questions, they know who to call. So it is really important to get to know your legislators.
Thank you. Thank you. So speaking of, I want to share with you our next lunch and learn because it fits in very, very well with what we're talking about here and testimony and advocacy. So we have partnered up with NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness and Peer Support Association of North Dakota. And next month, we're having a lunch and learn again, third Friday of the month over noon. And it's NAMI Smarts for Advocacy, telling your story. So learn how to craft and share your personal story that you can use. You can use it with testimony. You can use it when you're meeting and talking with your legislator. So learn how to use your story to influence behavioral health policies if that's what's important to you. So this is an hour-long session, and this is what you're going to learn how to do is use your story for advocacy and inspiring change. We are requiring registration. It's free, no charge for it, but we do ask that you register in advance for the session because we do have a limited number of people that can attend with the one presenter, so we need to manage and track that. You can find registration through either the QR code here, or you can go to the Peer Support website and click on the Training and Events tab, and you can register through there as well too. You'll get an initial message saying you're registered, but you're not going to actually get the meeting invite with the link to the event for a little bit time longer. But just complete the form and you will be registered. Okay. So super excited about doing that session next month to build upon Emma's great session today. Okay. Thank you. And then our CEUs. Tamara?
Yes. So the CEUs, whether you attend in person or not, we have a keyword when you register for your CEUs, and that keyword is policy. I put in the chat here the link that you can go to register. There's also a shortened link on the screen, and the QR code should take you there. So just register for that, answer the few questions. That gives us some feedback about how we did with this session, or what you'd like to see in the future, or even if you'd like to participate more with PSAND. So please go to that to get your CEUs. And people have asked me sometimes, currently the system we're using, it can take me up to a couple of weeks to get your certificate out. So don't panic if I try to get them out as soon as possible, but sometimes it takes me a little longer. So.
And I'll add on, encourage you to share your ideas about future sessions. We have been doing quarterly sessions, and we're getting closer to moving toward a monthly rhythm of the sessions for lunch and learns. So potentially that can be 12 CEUs for free right there in a year by attending PSAND lunch and learns. So hearing from you and what content and what you are interested in learning really helps us identify and develop the content that you're asking for. So please let us know. And I should also add on too, if you have a recommendation for a person or an organization to bring in to partner with on content, or if you yourself are interested in presenting, let us know that too. Okay. That concludes today's Lunch and Learn. Thank you all for attending. Today, we are not having a casual connection conversation following the call. There are many of us that have legislative meetings that start at 1 o'clock, and so we're unable to host the casual connections at this time today. But stay tuned for the future ones. Thank you.
And I also put my email address in the chat. So if there's any way I can help any of you, like I said, with testimony or helping you navigate the system, feel free to reach out at any time. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and weekends. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Great job, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys for all your information.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.